Okay, I guess my first question is, raise of hands, who's heard of Topgolf Entertainment? Okay, who's actually been to a Topgolf venue? Okay, so I don't need to go into a whole lot of detail, but there are some important parts of these slides I wanted to cover. So we are a global sports and entertainment community making great times for all. On the next slide, what you may not know is that we're divided into several different business units. If you've watched a PGA Tour event and you see the blue trace behind when Jordan Spieth or Tiger hit the ball, that's our Top Tracer group out of Sweden. If you've been to a venue, you may play Angry Birds and see that same trace as it's knocking down a castle and the pigs are smiling and laughing at you and all this sort of stuff, right? But you may also have played the World Golf Tour application. It's the #1 golf app on Android and Apple. And we leverage a lot of the same game methodologies and all that stuff. On the bottom side of the slide there, we also have Topgolf Live, which is a combination of experiences at stadiums and such. So you can actually we went to Fenway Park, and you can sit in the outfield, you can stand in the outfield and hit a 9-iron across the field. It's a pretty cool experience. And then we have live content studios. So imagine just the section of this slide that's location-based, though. Our Topgolf venues and Top Tracer ranges, we sell that same trace product in the games to driving ranges around the world. I think we're in 28 countries when I last heard. But we're very location-based in our venue business. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is where there's a picture on the left there. Many of you have been to a Topgolf. We have lots of space. We're built on 12 to 15 acres, but only the T-line, the 3 floors of the T-line, or 4 floors if you're here in Vegas, have guests, and we're playing music as you're playing the Topgolf game, Angry Birds, and so on. And our bay hosts and runners are delivering food from the kitchen, and that delivery time is really important. I can speak to that because the worst experience is to have an old-fashioned with melted ice showing up at your bay, or your food comes out cold while you're there with your buddies or your family or whatever. So the location-based part of this is a really key thing. And Annie's going to get into more details of our implementation, but every QR code you scan at a Topgolf is location aware, so it knows what day you're at. We track all the data of the guest that ordered the food. It goes in through our point of sale system and into the KDS and comes back out. So this is not pulling up a PDF menu. This is actually pulling up where you can order your old-fashioned or nachos or whatever else it is. So as of this week, we have, it's over 70, I want to say 75 Topgolf venues, the traditional venues. Cool, next slide.
Do you guys talk about like F&B versus other revenue in on-premise, just so people have some idea? It's on here.
Yeah. So I'll go into that. So I think to kind of tee up this slide, we wanted to give you a little bit of a background of our tech stack, like what happens in the background, what happens on the guest side. There's a couple pieces of strategy that I think are important to think about as we're kind of going through this. So 3 realities in the world. One right now is that guests in general are using mobile more than ever. Right? So that's one piece of strategy that has kind of led to where we're going right now. 2 is there seems to be a situation right now where people do not want to wait, right? Like that seems to be growing more and more than ever before. And 3 is what we call the comeback kid of 2020, which is the QR. That thing, like, no one ever thought of the QR code would come back the way it did in 2020. So what we did, a couple years ago, we really laid out, here's our guest experience. We have booking, so what happens at booking. And right now we have 2 pieces of software, or actually 3 pieces of software that kind of support our booking. On the front end, from what the guests can see, we have 2 softwares. We have one that supports event booking, and we have one that supports reservations. On the back end, we have a Salesforce platform that supports when people call in to us and want to book. The next piece, and the reason that one of the two pieces is green, is because that was a gap that we found kind of in our tech space. And that we knew that people want to take control of their experience, and we had a gap where we weren't allowing our guests to take control of the experience. And so what we are currently testing is join the waitlist. So giving the guests the ability to join via their mobile device without having to talk to a human. On the back end, we have an internal software that supports kind of the seating of our bays. The next piece is the sign-in piece. So this may be kind of unique to the entertainment space, but we collect data on every single person that comes to Topgolf. So that does allow us to market differently, and it is an important piece. But as we were kind of looking at the, further down the line, it's like, how do we connect that data all together? So we have a sign-in piece. So we do we basically make everybody sign into our game panel so that we can collect that data. The next piece is the ordering piece, and that was another area where we saw a gap in our tech stack. So the ability to give guests the ability to order through their own mobile device. And then on the back end, obviously, we have the POS that supports that, and we have the inventory management system that supports that. And then we have our gameplay system. That's an internal system that's both on the back end and on the front end. The guests interact with that. And then we have a checkout. Obviously, before any sort of mobile ordering testing, we had the POS really just supporting that. So by filling in those three gaps, we allowed for us to allow our guests to have all the control, right? Like we're moving towards that reality in the world, so we needed to fill that up. And when we first started down this path, we were actually going down the kiosk route. So, and on Join the Waitlist, we had built these kiosks that you could go and literally join the waitlist in our lobbies on a kiosk. On the ordering and checking out side, we had built a kiosk that was basically in the bay and you could order. And then COVID made us take a step back and say, what is the reality of the world? Why are we investing in all of this kiosk infrastructure when we know that the world is going to mobile? And so that's kind of when we shifted our strategy, and we have now since been testing the mobile sector. So if you go to the next page, I think, Join the Waitlist has been a relatively easy, I would say, implementation. Like we know the guests want it. It's relatively easy. It hooks up to our reservation system. I would say when we went down the path of trying to figure out how do we fill that gap in the mobile ordering space, it was a much more complicated problem because you have the gameplay, which people are paying for gameplay. We needed the gameplay on the check, and we needed the ability to split that check. We wanted to make sure that whatever we did didn't affect the guest experience in a negative way. We wanted to make it more positive and more in their hands. So we needed to have some pretty advanced tab functionality. So allowing somebody to open a tab, and then add to those orders and then close it at any time during their experience, as opposed to, when we looked at a lot of softwares in this space were all about you have to pay before you order. And we really didn't want that for our guests. We wanted to say, hey, let's allow them to open the tab, let's allow them to order and then pay when they want. And so that was another piece of functionality that we really wanted. We had existing POSs, we had existing gift card providers, and we needed a lot of integration between those systems to make this very guest-friendly. We know another reality of the world is this whole mobile payment, and using your mobile wallet to pay. I don't know if you guys have noticed this as you go to the grocery store now, and I feel like this has happened in the last 3 months, that every single grocery store now you can pay with your mobile phone and you never need to actually carry a card. We are very aware of that, and we know that Topgolf currently does not have a solution for it, and so we needed to have the ability for you to pay with Apple Pay and Google Pay and that sort of stuff. We had a lot of legal requirements, so as you think about any sort of mobile ordering, there's going to be legal requirements because we do sell alcohol, and how do we make sure that we're keeping our guests safe and keeping us safe using a mobile ordering system. And then we know that there's power in connecting the F&B to our membership. So if we can tell who is our highest frequency, our highest spenders, we can market to them differently, right? We can try to get those highest spenders back in the door. And so we wanted the ability to connect that back. And so GoTab actually had a really interesting way to do it. I mean, they collect the phone number up front, which is the same unique identifier that we use in our membership database. And so we're able to kind of connect that data back. So eventually we will have all that kind of streamlined and we can kind of connect it all together. So we've been looking at, we've been testing mobile ordering and join the wait list. And I won't go too much into join the wait list, but I'll talk a little bit more about mobile ordering. I mean, in terms of what we've seen, if you go to the next slide, there's 4 things that we look at when we are measuring kind of the success of this. There's one is overall satisfaction from our guests. Did their satisfaction go up? The 2 is around spend per visit. So like Tim said, spending with mobile ordering, we have seen a pretty significant jump from implementing that and people just ordering more because they have the accessibility to order more. The 3rd is around, I can't even read it now, tips. We wanted to make sure that anything that we did didn't affect our associates in a negative way. And so we've been monitoring tips. And interestingly enough, the tips have actually gone up with the mobile ordering because the check average has gone up. And then the last thing that we wanted to make sure was we wanted to look at the labor model. So we did kind of a time study on what do our bay hosts spend their most time on. And it was about 40% of their time they were spent away from the bay at the focus terminal, typing in the orders and checking people out. And so as we can release some of that burden on the bay hosts, we can potentially expand the number of bays that they can have, and then they can increase their tips even more. So that was another area that we really wanted to try to attack from that. So we're in